Your uncle handled everything. The body. It was supposed to be cremated, but at the last second he insisted on a burial. Since it was Dad's last wish, I never saw the body.
Hi, my name is Angel. Fiancée, oh fiancée. You see a ghostly apparition at the end of the hall and you're like, I don't want to do this, I just want to clock out and leave. Can you do this some other day to someone else? I can't get clean. So hello everyone, and welcome to my channel. Or welcome back to my channel. My name is Jessica Layla. And today, we're gonna be checking out a new popular subreddit that I've never checked out before. So in case you're new here and you have no idea what's going on, today we're going to be checking out a scary subreddit. I like to do my scary intros to be kinda silly.
I think I like this little duckoo.
Yeah, so today we're going to be checking out a very popular subreddit. So yeah, today we are going to be checking out a very popular subreddit, one that I have never been on myself. Actually, is that a lie? Maybe back in October. I don't remember. Things were a little bit hazy back then. I don't know if this one is true. So today we're going to be checking out the subreddit r/no-sleep. And in case you don't know what this is, it is a place where people can post fictional stories made to sound real. So you know how like people go on Reddit and post, am I the a-hole for eating my kid's Lunchable? Well, imagine that, but it's completely made up and supposed to be scary. It would be like, I ate my kid's Lunchable today, and I shouldn't have done that, because their kid is, like, secretly a demon or something. Yeah, it's a subreddit that is kind of known for its more silly, not very well-written stories that are supposed to be good. Yeah, that's the subreddit we're gonna be checking out today. We're gonna be reading some scary stories, and we're gonna be finding some great authors. All the story post-credit will be linked down below where you can check out the subreddit and the stories yourself. So everyone, what I want you to do is settle on in, grab your snacks, grab your drinks, and let's just dive right in with our first story. So this one comes from Scourge Official 1. I think I left my shower running. I'm writing this at 4:47 a.m. because I can't go back to sleep. Hell, I don't think I'll ever sleep again. Not after what I just saw. Or what I think I saw. I'm honestly not sure anymore. Let me start from the beginning, because maybe if I write this all down, it'll make sense. Yesterday was one of those days that just beats the hell out of you. Double shift at the warehouse, my supervisor breathing down my neck about quotas, and my back screaming from lifting boxes for 12 hours straight. All I wanted when I got home was a hot shower and my bed. I turned the water on and sat on the edge of my mattress while it heated up. Just for a second, I told myself. Just until the steam starts fogging the mirror. The next thing I knew, I was waking up to the sound of running water. My apartment was thick with humidity, and I could hear the shower still going full blast. Great. I had fallen asleep and wasted gosh knows how much hot water. My landlord was going to love the utility bill. That's when I tried to get up and realized I couldn't move. Sleep paralysis. I'd had it a few times before, usually when I was stressed or exhausted. Your mind wakes up, but your body stays locked in sleep. It's terrifying, but I knew it would pass. I just had to wait it out. But then I heard something that made my blood freeze. Footsteps. In my bathroom. Heavy, wet footsteps slapping against the tile. A voice echoed from behind the shower curtain, distorted by the water and steam. The footsteps stopped. Then suddenly, the shower curtain was ripped aside and someone stumbled out of my bathroom. I wanted to scream, but my paralysis held me prisoner. All I could do was watch as this thing started dripping in my doorway. It looked like a man, but wrong. His skin was gray and slimy, covered in what looked like pond scum. Dark patches of mold spread across his arms and chest like bruises. Water poured off him in sheets, pooling at his feet. I can't get clean! He screamed, his voice raw and desperate. He stumbled back into the bathroom, and I heard him climb back into the shower. The water changed pitch as his body moved under the stream. This happened again and again. Each time he emerged, he looked worse. The scum grew thicker, Barnacles began sprouting from his shoulders and neck like grotesque jewelry. His skin took on a greenish tint. Something that looked suspiciously like seaweed hung from his hair. He muttered, quieter now, defeated, then louder. I can't get clean! I lost count of how many times he repeated this ritual. My paralysis held me captive as this nightmare played out in my bathroom. The humidity in my apartment became suffocating. The sound of running water mixed with his desperate sobs until I thought I might go insane. Then everything went black. When I came to, he was standing over my bed. His face was inches from mine, if you could still call it a face. Barnacles had claimed his left cheek. Something green and slimy dripped from his mouth onto my pillow. His eyes, bloodshot and wild, stared directly into mine. I can't get clean! He shrieked. The shock broke my paralysis. I jolted awake, gasping and shaking. My room was dark and quiet. No moldy man. Just me, soaked in sweat, heart pounding against my ribs. Sleep paralysis. It had to be. The most vivid, terrifying episode I'd ever experienced, but just a hallucination brought on by stress and exhaustion. I laughed shakily, running my hands through my damp hair. That's when I noticed my apartment was still humid. I looked towards my bathroom, and my veins ran cold. There, leading from my bedroom to the bathroom, was a trail of wet footprints. And from behind my closed bathroom door, I could hear the unmistakable sound of running water. I'm still sitting in my car now, parked outside a 24-hour diner, writing this on my phone. I grabbed my keys and ran. I couldn't bring myself to open that bathroom door. I don't know what to do. I can't go back there. But I also can't afford to find a new place, and who would believe the story anyway? Has anyone else experienced something like this? I keep telling myself it was just a nightmare, but those footprints, they were real. I don't think I'm ever going home. My rearview mirror is starting to fog up. Whoa! That was actually really good. You know what that reminds me of? I don't remember the name of the short film. It was featured in A Spooky Scary Sunday, where it's that wet guy in the box. That's all I know him as. It reminds me of that a little bit. The wet guy from the box. Sleep paralysis, though, terrifies me. It just sounds like a horrific experience. I experience sleep terrors. I've talked about this before on the channel, and those are pretty bad, so I can't imagine being trapped in your body, unable to move, while said thing is happening and playing out. Those are truly scary. But we're just getting started, so let's continue on with the next one. So this comes from the Barbie Boy 55. She is not my fiancée, and I hope I never see her again. So because this has an accent mark on it, I don't know if I'm gonna be pronouncing this right, but we're gonna try anyway. Hi, my name is Angel. Hi, my name is Angel, and to this day, I have no explanation for what happened to me. This took place in Wisconsin, in the apartment complex where I live with my fiancé. It's a quiet neighborhood, very quiet. The kind of place where people nod politely, and the nights are so still that you can hear your own thoughts. I'd never imagined I'd have an experience that would leave me shaking. But I did. It was a cold winter night, around midnight. I went outside to take our dog out, like I always do. The cold was biting, the kind that gets deep into your bones. While I walked, my sister called, and we started talking about random things. Nothing unusual. After a few minutes, my hands were going numb, so I decided to get into my car to finish the call with the heater running. I sat in the driver's seat. My dog curled up in my lap. I shut the door, turned on the heat, and locked the car. Everything felt normal. Until it didn't. Suddenly I felt something. I can't explain it. It wasn't a noise or a shadow, just a feeling, like someone was watching me. I looked into the rearview mirror, almost without thinking. I saw a flicker, a shape. Something that had passed behind the car. My body went stiff. My chest tightened. I slowly turned my head toward the driver's side mirror. And that's when I saw her. Crouched behind the car, wearing her winter hat. Her mismatched robe, the kind she always wears when she's cold, and doesn't care how she looks. It was my fiancée. I recognized her instantly, not just by her clothes, but by her presence. When you love someone deeply, you know their shape. Their silence, even their stillness. But something was wrong. She was looking right at me, expressionless, motionless, just staring. She didn't smile. She didn't move. She didn't even blink. For a moment, I wasn't scared. I was just startled. I assumed she had come downstairs to check on me. That wouldn't have been strange. We're very close, always looking out for each other in small ways. I told my sister I'd call her back. I figured I'd walk back up with my fiancé. I grabbed my things, picked up my dog, and stepped out of the car. She wasn't there. The parking lot was empty. Still, there was no movement, no sound, just the wind rustling somewhere in the distance. I looked around. I called her name softly. Nothing. Fiancé! Oh, fiancé! At first, I thought she might be hiding, trying to spook me or play a joke. But then something hit me like a punch to the chest. My fiancé has a rod in her spine. She had spinal surgery as a teenager. She physically can't crouch like that. Not quickly. Not easily. Not at all in the middle of a freezing night like that. I stood frozen for a few seconds before I started walking toward our apartment building. That's when I noticed something else. My phone was gone. I checked all my pockets. Nothing. I had to go back to the car. Man, screw the phone. Just get inside. I'm the white person that survives the horror film. There it was, lying on the ground, right next to the driver's side door. I hadn't heard it fall. I hadn't even felt it slip. I bent down to pick it up, and when I stood up, I saw him. A figure standing between two parked cars, far away, watching me. He didn't move. He didn't speak. The only thing visible was the dim red glow of a cigarette lighting up every few seconds. That was it. He was just there, staring, smoking, waiting. I didn't wait around. I ran. I took the stairs 2 at a time. When I opened the apartment door, my fiancée came out of the bathroom. Her hair was soaking wet. She had a towel wrapped around her body. She looked at me immediately, like she could already sense something was wrong. I told her everything. Every word, every second, and her face went pale. I've been in the bathtub since you left, she said. I never got out. Not once. So, who did I see? Who crouched behind my car wearing her robe, her hat, and her face, and why? Since that night, I haven't walked the dog without checking every mirror. Not for me, for her. Because whatever I saw that night, it looked like her, but it wasn't her. I'm not trying to convince anyone, I just needed to say this out loud. When something takes the form of someone you love, the fear doesn't just sit in your chest. It claws at your trust in reality. Have you ever seen someone you love in a place they could have never been? Because I have. And she wasn't my fiancé. Angel. I love that the question is just who did I see and who was crouched behind my car wearing her robe, her hat, and her face. It's not like, what kind of creature did I see? I guess this is like a skinwalker story. Spooky. Honestly, pretty solid story. I just feel like if I saw that and realized that couldn't be my fiancé, I would have just ran inside. Skip the phone, take the dog, get inside, lock the door, turn the lights off, and don't speak. So anyways, on to our next one. This next one comes from La Ofrenda. I work at an ice rink. I saw something that chilled me to the bone. I know I should be grateful for a chill job at an ice rink. Nice pun. Especially as we gear up for a scorching summer. I'm thinking about quitting though. I'm too creeped out to go back there. I needed a summer job, and I was a little surprised by the lack of competition for a gig at the local rink. My first day was right after the interview. Pay wasn't great, but the expectations weren't bad either. Help customers, keep the place clean, restock the restrooms, that kind of work. The most important task was a team effort. Keep the rink temperature below freezing at all times. That made sense. It's an ice rink, not a swimming pool. At regular intervals, I checked the thermostat to make sure the rink remained between 19 and 29 degrees. Doing so ensured that the main room was always nice and chilly. My own frosty oasis in the middle of town. My boss was the face of the business, so he was usually up front serving guests, or back in his office. Whenever he came out, he checked the rink's temperature, even if I had just checked it myself. One day, I clocked in a few minutes late and found the boss hustling towards the thermostat. He seemed startled when he noticed me. "Seen anybody around here yet?" he asked. I checked the clock to see that we were still nearly an hour away from opening. "Not yet," I said. "Good." He smiled. Then he asked me to help set up a new game in the arcade. It was a massive cabinet, big screen, 2-seater bench, huge speakers. The delivery men rolled it in and moved it into place, so now it was time to plug it in and see how it ran. Power go down, whatever's under that ice is gonna kill us. I plugged in the power cord and fired up the cabinet. The screen flickered, the speakers roared to life, and the whole place went dark. I looked out into the main room to see the boss sprinting for the breaker boss.
What?
What? The girl at the concession counter dropped what she was doing and disappeared into the kitchen. I left the arcade to apologize for the mishap, and then I noticed the smell. It was like someone left meat out and went on vacation. The stench was heavy and sickening, so strong I could taste it. I figured it must have come from the kitchen. My boss was in the back, sweating bullets at the breaker box. "The wiring's screwy," he said when he saw me. "One thing goes wrong and the whole place loses power." He snapped a few switches back into place and closed the box. Behind us, machines hummed again. He sighed and wiped the sweat from his forehead. "It's just an old building. That's all. This man is hiding something." He checked the thermostat and stayed by the rink until it was time to open. The smell had mostly dissipated by the time customers started filtering in, but it was hard to forget. It was still in my clothes when I went home. A few days later, the boss had to run errands, leaving me and the concession girl to hold the fort down. Everything seemed fine at first. Then a group of kids approached me from the arcade. They said the new cabinet wasn't working right. The screen kept freezing, and they couldn't get their quarters back. My boss had briefly showed me how to troubleshoot these machines, so I did what I could to diagnose the problem. It took me longer than I'd like to admit. I was hesitant to unplug the game and restart it, but I tried everything I could to get the game working again. If I had to refund, I imagined the boss wouldn't mind. At some point, I realized I was sweating. I dressed warm for work, since the main room stays in the mid-50s, but I suddenly felt too hot. I told the kids I'd be right back, and tried not to look conspicuous as I made my way to the rink thermostat, 30 degrees, still below freezing. I returned to the arcade to realize that it was the air conditioner that was struggling. It was blazing hot outside, and our AC was fighting hard to keep the room cool. I finally got the game up and running, then ran by the concession counter for lunch. The late afternoon rush kicked in, and I was on my feet for hours. Without the boss up front, I was renting out skates, checking the restrooms, and doing my best to keep the new arcade game running. I didn't get a moment to catch my breath until closing time. I shut off the lights and flipped the front door sign from open to closed. Then I realized it had been hours since I checked the rink thermostat. Oh no. I knew I had to take a look before I left for the night. 35 degrees. Not great, not terrible. I adjusted the target temperature and waited until the system started pumping more coolant beneath the ice. I headed to the door, but stopped at the hallway to the restrooms. There was someone standing at the end of the hall. I was startled, but more than anything, I just wanted to go home. You see a ghostly apparition at the end of the hall and you're like, I don't want to do this, I just want to clock out and leave. Can you do this some other day to someone else? We're closed, I said. We have to lock up now. He didn't move. Do you need to use the restroom first? I thought maybe he wasn't feeling well. Concession food can be rough on some people's stomachs. He turned to face me. The hall was dark, except for the exit light over my head, which cast a dim red glow over his face. His head hung low and he wore a vacant expression, like he was asleep on his feet. Then he lifted his head to look at me. I didn't say a word. The more I stared, the more the features of his face seemed to be out of place, like it was just a mask. His eyes looked cloudy in the red light, but I could tell that he was looking at me. Then an intense shiver came over me. It was an ice-cold chill that pierced to my core. It had to be fear, but I wrapped my arms close to warm up. Then he was gone. I looked behind me, then back down the hall. There was no one there. I didn't stick around to check the restrooms. I got out of there as soon as I could. The next day, I told my boss about the man in the hall. He listened quietly and took a while before speaking. What does he look like? He asked. I described the lifeless face and the dull eyes, feeling a hint of a chill just recalling it. And was he dressed a little outdated? I thought about it. The man wore a suit, but maybe the lapels were a little too big, the pants flared a little too wide. That wasn't what concerned me at the time, though. Maybe so. My boss nodded. Did the ice rink go above freezing yesterday? It did, I said, but I fixed it before leaving last night. We've got to keep an eye on it, he said. Then he left for his office. You'll see people like that around here. It'll be okay. Just keep an eye on the rink. I don't trust the boss man! I looked over to the concession counter. My coworker had been listening. She only met my eyes for a second, then she went about her work. We'd be opening soon, and the heat was sure to drive a crowd our way. It was a brutal summer, and when the temperatures rise so high, everybody blasts their AC. It puts a serious strain on the power grid. Yesterday, we tipped the meter too far. The power went out across downtown. My boss went out to fire up the generator, telling me to make sure nobody went near the ice. At first, customers sat in the dining area and waited to see if the power would return. I couldn't blame them. The air was still cool, and anything was better than going back out into the heat. As the day went on, though, the chill faded and there was no point in sticking around. Our customers left, and it was just me and my coworker. Our boss clearly wasn't going to get generator up and running anytime soon, so I hoped that he would just let us go. My coworker went outside to ask, "Uh-oh, you've been left alone." The air was starting to turn muggy, so I went to check the thermostat. It had a backup battery, so I could at least see the rink's temperature, 40 degrees. It was only going to climb from there. With my back to the ice, I felt something move just behind me. The stench of spoiled meat returned, thick in the humid air. My legs quivered, but I ran for the door. I was in a hurry, so I decided to cut through the ice rink. Are you stupid? You idiot! Why would you do that? That was a stupid idea. I started slipping immediately and fell hard on my back. I looked up into a crowd of dead faces. There were dozens of them, dead, bloody bodies, all standing on the ice. Their faces were frozen in horrified silent howls, while some looked as if they had been beaten or crushed. They all watched me with pale, cloudy eyes. I heard myself scream and I scrambled for footing. I fell again and again, trying to crawl across the ice. Finally, I reached the other side and bolted to the exit. As I pushed through the doors, I could see my coworker's car was gone. She had the right idea. I didn't stop to lock up. I took today off and called my boss to tell him what happened. He didn't question any of it. He seemed to know what was going on, so I asked for an explanation.
You know the gravel lot down the street?
He asked.
There used to be an office building there. It collapsed years ago when I was just a kid. A lot of people died.
I never heard the whole story before. Apparently, there were so many casualties, the local morgue was overwhelmed. They had to store bodies at the ice rink to keep them cool. They were there on the ice for days until they could be moved or identified. Now I understand what I saw, but that doesn't make it any better. I don't want to go to work tomorrow.
Who was the guy at the end of the hall? I want another tea.
It's like that line from Poltergeist. How's it go? About not moving the bodies, did you?
You moved the cemetery, but you left the bodies, didn't you?
You know, I would not go back to a job where I witnessed that. You couldn't pay me enough. I'm sorry. I'd have to be making like $1 million a night in order to consider going back. Anyways, on to the next one. So this next one comes from Nicola90, the third person. I live alone, but there are 3 toothbrushes in my bathroom. That's not a metaphor or some weird art project. I have 1 toothbrush, a blue one. I've always used blue. But 2 weeks ago, I noticed a red toothbrush in the holder next to mine. I assumed it was a leftover from the last tenant or something I forgot about. I threw it away. 2 days later, the red toothbrush was back. Clean, damp. I thought maybe I was losing it. Stress, lack of sleep, whatever. I started locking my bedroom door at night just in case. I live in a 1-bed flat. No flatmates, no pets, no one has a spare key. Then came the mug. A chipped white mug appeared next to my sink one morning. Inside was the end of a cigarette, wet and half smoked. Why is it wet? I don't smoke. Never have. My windows were locked. The door was locked. I checked the building's CCTV. There was nothing. No one had entered or left in over 48 hours. Not a single soul? Then things got worse. A week ago, I woke up to the sound of breathing. Not mine. It was low, shallow, raspy. It wasn't coming from outside. It was in the room. I couldn't move. My body froze like it was trapped in glue. Just this feeling of absolute wrongness in the air. After what felt like forever, I managed to flick on the lamp. No one was there. But on the wall, drawn in something greasy, were 2 handprints. High up, like someone had stood on my bed and leaned over me while I slept. I called the police. They searched the place top to bottom. Nothing. No signs of forced entry. No evidence of anyone else. They told me it was probably stress-related hallucinations, but the handprints were real. I couldn't sleep the next night. I stayed up watching every corner of the flat, waiting for something to move. At 3:42 a.m., my kitchen tap turned on. Not all the way, just a slow, quiet trickle. I walked over, heart hammering, turned it off, and as I looked up into the window above the sink, I saw the reflection of a man standing behind me. Shaved head, no eyebrows, wet, white eyes. When I spun around, nothing. But the floor was wet. Here's the worst part. The part that makes me feel like I've already gone too far to get out. Last night, I set up my phone camera in my room while I slept, just to prove to myself that this was real, that I'm not crazy. I watched the footage this morning. At 2:17 a.m., the bedroom door opens slowly. A man walks in, quietly, confidently, like he's done it 100 times. He stands over me for 11 minutes, just breathing, watching. Then, and I swear to you, I almost threw up, he looks directly into the camera. He knows. He knew it was recording. In the very last frame, just before the footage cuts out, he leans down to my ear and whispers, "You're the third one." I left the flat, but I didn't tell anyone where I was going, didn't post online, didn't use my bank card. And somehow, this morning, when I woke up in the cheap motel I paid cash for, the red toothbrush was already in the bathroom. And now, there are 4. You know what? If you're gonna be in my room whispering things in my ear in the middle of the night, you're gonna start paying rent, okay? I don't care if you're a demon or an entity or the man in the box who's randomly wet. Haunt me in my dreams, haunt me in my sleep. Stop putting your toothbrush next to mine. Clearly you can't outrun this thing, so if it's gonna follow you around, you should at least ask it to pay. Anyways, on to the next one. So we're gonna do one last one for the night and call it there. So this one comes from this_chemical13. My dad's been dead for 10 years. He called me last night. I woke up to my phone vibrating on my nightstand. 2:13 a.m. The caller ID just said Dad. That didn't make sense. My father died 10 years ago. I sat there staring at the screen, my heart hammering in my chest. I wanted to believe it was some kind of glitch, a recycled number, maybe? But the number was the same one I used to call when I was a kid. The same one I deleted from my contacts the day of his funeral. I shouldn't have answered, but I did. At first, all I heard was static. Then something else, breathing, ragged, like someone was struggling for air. Hello? I whispered. A long pause. Then in a voice that shouldn't exist,
"You have to bury me."
I threw the phone across the room. It hit the wall, the screen cracking, but the call was still active. Yeah, that doesn't hang up a phone. This isn't a flip phone. The same heavy breathing filled the silence.
Who is this?
I choked out.
"Have to bury me."
The voice repeated. It sounded weaker now, like something fading.
"They never buried me."
My dad had a funeral, a casket, a burial plot. It doesn't make sense. Then I remembered something. The casket was closed. I barely slept. The next morning, I called my mom. We haven't talked much since Dad died. Too much pain between us. But when I asked about the funeral, she went quiet. "Mom," I said, "was Dad really in that casket?" She didn't speak for a long time. Then, barely above a whisper,
"I don't know."
my stomach turned to ice.
"Your uncle handled everything. The body. It was supposed to be cremated, but at the last second he insisted on a burial. Since it was Dad's last wish, I never saw the body."
My uncle. The same man who had a falling out with my dad months before he died. The same man who disappeared 2 weeks after the funeral and was never seen again. My hands shook as I hung up the phone. I accidentally opened my camera. I needed answers. I needed to know if my father was really in that grave. That night, I drove to the cemetery. The air was heavy, thick with the scent of damp earth. My dad's headstone was right where it had always been. But standing there, looking at it, I felt wrong. Like something was watching me. I shouldn't have done it, but I brought a shovel. It took me hours. Sweat dripped into my eyes. My arms ached. The whole time I kept expecting someone to stop me. No one did. Finally, my shovel hit something hard. wood. The coffin. My breath came in ragged gasps. My hands shook as I pried it open. It was empty. I stumbled back, bile rising in my throat. My mind raced. If my dad wasn't here, where was he? My phone buzzed. A single notification. New voicemail from Dad. My fingers felt numb as I pressed play. Static, then a whisper. I don't know what to do. I don't know where to look. But if my dad is still out there, if he was never buried at all, who the hell did we put in the casket? Well, no one. 'Cause it's empty! I feel like there was supposed to be a part 2 to this one, and there ain't. Okay, well, you know, these stories I feel like fall a little bit more on the cliche side, but I've seriously always wanted to check out the No Sleep subreddit. I've heard people talk about it for a good few years now, and I've heard good things, I've heard bad things, I've heard silly things, because I feel like it would be more scary if these stories came across as more real. You know, like when you read about people's posts on Reddit, and like you read about people's actual real life situations, like their marriages. So I feel like if we could incorporate more real life stuff into these, it's always paranormal, like, Satan called my phone and I picked it up at 3 a.m. Not to say that any of these stories are bad, but they all fall into the same cliches. There's a mysterious creature. There's something in my reflection. Someone called me. Someone who's dead who shouldn't be able to contact me contacted me. And it's always like the same recycled concepts. I don't know. But I'm glad we checked it out. Another new subreddit under our belt, under our gut. And, you know, scary, spooky videos are amongst some of my favorites to film. There's just something about them that hits different. But there's a lot of scary stories that I read that just aren't actually scary. We've read, you know, quite a few. No. We've read quite a few creepypastas that didn't actually turn out to be really all that creepy. Smile Dog, Jeff the Killer, although Smile Dog had a really good twist. You should go watch that video. The Russian Sleep Experiment, Jeff the Killer. They all, there's quite a few that just kind of feel flat, you know, kind of devoid. So yeah, that's where we're gonna end it for the night. Hopefully everyone enjoyed. Hopefully you're not scared. Is there a man in the reflection across from you? Yeah, I'm in your room. I know you have a mirror set up. I can see everything you're doing. See, that would be a good one. A YouTuber who breaks the fourth wall constantly until you realize one day they say something that's super specific, and then you whip your head and you're like, oh my gosh, they must know the layout of my house. If you want to read more of these stories or you want to check out the original posts, they will all be linked down below. Full credit is there. Thank you to our amazing authors for the entertainment they have given us tonight. So thank you all so much for watching. Hopefully you all enjoyed, and hopefully I will see you all here next time.